Hello, this is Scott Lane with People Powered Press. Hope you're having a great day or evening. This is Wednesday, August 3rd. Just wanted to have a recap of some trends that are happening this week and to see what you think. I think they're all related, but would love to get your feedback. First off, what do we have going on in Facebook? We have obviously a lot of the same propaganda coming from the Hillary campaign. You have Facebook spiking up their auto deleting of a lot of different memes, pictures, primarily focused on anything related to Jill Stein and the Green Party. We have Republicans coming down on Trump because he's talking about rigged debates, rigged elections. He's talking about Russia and trying to soften the blow. We have the news media, which is an echo chamber for Hillary and her campaign, to try to make it sound like everything to do with the DNC last week was regarding the Russians, and the Russians did it. But then we also had people say, no, that probably came from Seth Rich, who was, I believe, number 49 of the victims that have been killed in and around the Clintons, not including anyone to do with Secret Service. John Ash was number 48. So a lot is going on. Anything that we do to get criticism on Facebook, we should take as an indicator that we're doing something well. Also, we certainly have an announcement that people were not expecting from Jill Stein and the Green Party. We were expecting, hoping for, I think, many of us, to have Nina Turner, a real rising star, come up and become the vice presidential candidate for Jill Stein. Bit of a shocker that she actually picked a candidate that is not well known in some circles, but in the human rights area for the last 3 decades, extremely well known. And together with this candidate, Ajmal Baraka, the two of them are positioned to be the anti-Hillary party. Let me tell you why this is actually a genius masterstroke. Number one, if it wasn't for Bernie and the campaign that he ran, we would not be able to switch and pivot over to Jill. The Green Party would not even be an option. I think we all agree to that they have done far too little of getting traction because the two parties are essentially two sides of the same coin. They're corporatist parties, and they do not want the competition. They're afraid of the competition. This is the one time that we're finally ready to go with this. We have so many people that want a third party, that want options. Also helps that it's not well known, and we need to make it much more well known, that Donald Trump is actually a plant, a controlled opposition Overton window to Hillary, and this was started by Bill Clinton. We need to make that as widely known as possible. I don't think it's just a conjecture. We think it's actually quite a bit the same. The other thing we need to do, thanks to Bernie, is we need to talk about all of his issues, but talk about the things that the Democratic Party would not let him talk about. They would not let him criticize anything to do with the Democratic Party, whether it's rigged elections, any of the voter fraud, which is actually election fraud, voter fraud was very rare. Just even today, an announcement or update regarding one of the many lawsuits around the country, this one in San Diego, was discussed. So what does this all mean? I think we still have a bifurcated issue or process going forward that I'm following and that I suggest others follow as well. Number one, anybody that supports Bernie, keep supporting Bernie. And how can you do that? Obviously, if you're in states that have primaries, please vote. If you can ask him specifically, where is your money going? A lot of people are concerned with Act Blue that it is going to go to Hillary. We need assurances that it will not. We also need assurances that, in fact, the email list was kept for the two Sanders nonprofits, and we believe that's the case. We also need you to search out any whistleblowers that can blow the lid off of the rigged elections, off of the Clinton Foundation and its illegal scams, the way to do money laundering through a Canadian nonprofit that funnels it into the Clinton Foundation and avoids Freedom of Information Act requests. We need to put pressure on the IRS to speed up their investigation with the Clinton Foundation. We need people to have petitions to the NSA to ask them if they do in fact have the 33,000 deleted emails. Why don't they release them to the FBI or to the general public, at least a summary of what those might have been, realizing that they're going to have to redact a lot of those. Oh wait, maybe they're not, because they're all 33,000 about yoga classes. Whoever believes that. Everybody in DC knows the Clinton Foundation is a much larger institution that has spread money around politicians of all levels, bureaucrats of all levels. We need the gig to be up with the Clintons. We know they're corrupt. They've corrupted the system. There's no way that she's going to change the system because they built the system. And that includes Bill Clinton, Hillary, and Al Gore. The other thing we need to do is we need to start hitting these myths, truths, and misrepresentations where they lie. There are many lies going around, for example, about the new VP candidate and what he spoke regarding Bernie and others. Some of these are taken out of context, and I've addressed those, and we'll try to put links to those. Ajamu Baraka has an incredibly long history of extensive blogging and human rights interests. He takes anybody to task, whether it's Bernie, Dr. Cornel West, Barack Obama, you name it. This is exactly what we need to go against the human rights violations, whether it's the Palestinians, the 7,000 getting killed in Yemen, that frankly Bernie was not willing to say, no, it shouldn't have been done. So Bernie was the first major party presidential candidate to ever come out forcefully against regime change. Dr. Jill Stein goes much farther than that. And also with the new VP candidate, we'll go even more in depth there. But it also is about the U.S. human rights violations, not just police abuse, not just the criminal justice system, the education system, the voting system, the disenfranchisement, everything that's been going on in this country for decades. If we just consider the fact of people that have felonies that aren't able to vote anymore or have to seek to get their right to vote again, there are millions, perhaps 8 to 10 million people that do not have the right to vote because of a prison sentence. Think about that. Think about how many votes that Gore lost to. And speaking of omissions or errors or improper narratives and myths, we need to blow out of the water once and for all that Ralph Nader caused Gore to lose. No. For those of you that weren't there, and for those of you that were around and have some weird rosy view of this, the key why this is not the case is several facts. Number one, Al Gore is an incredibly boring, horrible public speaker. The speaker that you saw in the movie An Inconvenient Truth was nothing like the candidate. Watching paint dry on a wall is more interesting than Al Gore as a presidential candidate. Number two, he could not even win his home state. Number three, the Republicans, even before Jeb Bush, disenfranchised 90,000 people, primarily people of color in Florida, stating that they had felony records and therefore couldn't vote. This was not true, and the number that was disenfranchised, in addition to that, easily overtook the 500 and plus votes that it lost by. Also, it must be remembered that the Democratic Party and Al Gore came to an agreement not to keep challenging the ruling that was going on. There were various options that they had, and they chose not to do it. Last but not least, let's mention the connection that they have here. It needs to be understood that Al Gore was being a good soldier. He had extensive ties with Big Pharma, military-industrial complex, all the usual suspects that Hillary has. He, along with Bill Clinton, were also the two co-chairs of the DLC. The Democratic Leadership Council was essentially the corporatist takeover of the coup d'etat. that took over the Democratic Party and flushed out the progressives. Fast forward to this year, what have we had here? We have had a coup d'etat electorally. And this is something else that we need to start talking about. We have the TPP that's going on, which is also a coup d'etat. This will lose all of our civil liberties, our country's sovereignty, things that should be unconstitutional, things that should be considered treasonous, but they're not. Why? Because the slippery slope of Congress passing all sorts of laws that are unconstitutional. But the challenge for this is the only way to prove that they're unconstitutional is you have to find a plaintiff, someone that has actually suffered, and they actually have to go through the court process of 5 years, for example. We have heard many times that Hillary, when she finally said no, she said no to TPP after the fast track vote was over. If she said no before, she could have actually stopped it, but she chose not to. So what we need to do is focus on a lot of these tracks. They may be unrelated, but do focus on what Hillary is doing, what she's doing wrong. Focus the illegalities. If there is a choice that, whether it's WikiLeaks or anything else that you can find, that if things can be done to blow it out of the water, that even the corrupt Democratic Party may actually have to come and say, well, we need to get rid of Hillary. We need to say enough is enough. We can't take her. She's going to lose. She's sinking in the polls. And Bernie, who frankly had 3 to 8 million, at least 5 million votes stripped, flipped, and otherwise taken away from him, was the original nominee anyway. Another interesting tidbit about that, if Bernie got all the votes he really did get, and we recorded it as such, he would have had a record-breaking take. Not only more than 16 or 18 million, he would have blown away Donald Trump. So think about that. And also think about, nationally, we have around 43% of the people, maybe 45% that are independents, 29% Democrats, and 23% Republicans. So, last but not least, for those thinking that Jill Stein, this is also something Jill needs to change. She says sometimes we need to lose. Personally, I think she needs to get that out of her lexicon completely. If we do this right, and we overcome Facebook and Google and the Hillary bots and Hillary and their super PACs with their $6.5 million campaign on social media that is censoring a lot of content the last week or so, if we can overcome all of that and get the people to vote in their own self-interest, we can win this. Having a third party win is not only doable from a popular vote standpoint, it is possible in the Electoral College. It would have been easier with Bernie on board. But even if Bernie isn't, we can still win it. There's something else to consider. Bernie still has all of our pledged delegates. I believe the reason that Nina Turner said no to Jill Stein was the fact that if enough is found where the DNC has to flush out Hillary, they can actually go with Bernie and Nina. So we will be able to have this come in through the Democratic Party. Whether or not that's something you want, that's up to you to decide. But these are all options. They're all in play. And this is part of that chess match that many of us were talking about. So please do keep this in mind and have a wonderful day and keep fighting the good fight. Don't give up. Every day there's something else that you can do, people you can reach out. You can correct the record yourself and not look for people to reach out for Snopes or someone else to correct the record because they're biased. But it's all in our hands. Thank you very much and have a great day.